Hi, welcome to the Ohio Oak. Thanks for stopping by today. I was driving home from dropping my kids off at school, and at this point it was getting towards the end of school, and I had already decided that I wanted to build my son's teacher something. And I decided to build a pencil box, partially because I thought it'd be a really great gift to give to a teacher, and also because I wanted to give her something handmade. And I had thought, how can I also turn this into a business idea? Maybe it had something to do with Kitty Catacorn glaring at me in the rear view with her darting eyes, imposing her mystifying powers of creativity upon me. I don't know. Making that box really sparked this love I once had for that type of woodworking. And it really got my head spinning with all sorts of ideas. And I really want to show you how this all unfolded after that drive home. It all started with an idea, a business idea. So this lumber is S4S lumber, and what that means is that it is sawn cut on 4 sides. Your ends and your faces. And the story behind this, why I even had this wood, the pastor that married my wife and I was building at his new church, and he had dropped this oak tree in his yard. His brother-in-law dried it out for him. He milled it, dried it, and so this was really good lumber that we're going to use in the build out of the church, but it's not fire rated, so he couldn't use it. This is maybe 2015. I started an Etsy shop just to make some extra money, and he knew that. Reached out to me and said, hey, would you like all this lumber? And I couldn't pass that up. I said yes. We had nowhere to store it. We had a very small 1-car garage, but my goal here is to make multiple of these boxes, these pencil boxes, and start my Etsy shop back up because I miss it. I love doing that. It was a lot of fun. So we'll see how this goes. It's very rare when I plan something, but I also have the memory of a goldfish. So I do need to write things down so I don't forget, especially because I want to replicate this. For maybe the first time in my life, I actually took an idea that I had in my head and I wrote it down. And I'm starting a notebook for all my projects, and these ideas are going to help me in case I want to do it again in the future, but also during my creative process in making whatever the project is. Since I don't do this full time, I sometimes have days, weeks, where I don't get back out to my garage to actually work on the project. So this will really help me pick back up where I left off. That's why woodworking plans exist in the first place. And it's only taken me 40 years to figure that out. But I hope this is the start that's gonna help me get this business up and running. You know, there's also a good chance I either keep one of these boxes or make one for myself in the future because, well, as you'll see, my current pencil box is bananas. Last one. 8 of these in the books. Step 1, mill and cut to length. Step 2, resaw. Step 3, I need to get these back through the planer. And then we can start cutting the length. All right, check it out. So here's what I've done. 1 plank will be 1 box. I've labeled each side 1 and 3, and each end 2 and 4. And I have A, B, C, D, E. I have 5. So each one I've labeled an A, a B, a C, a D, and an E, so I can keep them track once I start cutting them up. I'm likely going to miter one end, so I'll have a 45 degree on those 2 ends. This side will be mitered, this side will be open. And I'll probably do a rabbet joint up top here to slide that last end in and glue it into place. In my head, it sounds great, but we won't really know until, well, we, the royal we, won't really know until I start cutting. This is where labeling comes in handy. A1, A2, A3, 1 so I don't lose track of how these go together, and 2 so I don't lose track of orientation, so I can keep my grain all aligned. There we are. Here's 7.5. We'll cut our rabbets. What about here? Now, let's replicate that. 1, 2, 3, 4 more times. Well, that was easy. Okay, not really. That was a lot of cutting. Anyways, time to start taping up the boxes and seeing how we can get these to fit together before glue up and figuring out the bottom and the top and everything else. Okay. Like a glove. Last set of boxes finished. Next step, glue these together as a frame, cut them in half, prep for the bottoms. I gotta mill bottoms, I gotta mill tops for these. Over there are the boxes that still need bottoms. Over here, I have my lunchbox planner / glue up table. I started making these boxes in the spring. It's already the end of summer, my kids are now back to school. This was not a quick process, not for me at least. And there were a lot of steps that I just didn't film because there was just gonna be way too much content and it wasn't really necessary. So you're gonna see parts where some of the boxes that I have are farther along than others. That's because I got to those first, didn't film it, I came back. Now my goal here is to catch everybody watching up to where I get all the boxes on the same path going forward. Get them all back into the same spot. They're all glued, cut, and ready to move on to the next step. We have our 5 boxes all sitting at 4 inches in height. I'd really like to take these down to the 2-inch mark. Bottom's going on like that, which I'll start working on here now. Bottoms are milled, boxes are ready. I need to glue my bottoms on, but I need to sand this bottom surface first. You need to be careful because if you just take a sander straight to it, or even you start hand sanding it, you're gonna put it at a level. Just trying to make that flat for a nice little seam there. I have a few boxes left. I still have that little lip right there on the end because I made the bottom oversized so I can glue it up and I don't have to worry about it being perfectly aligned. I can come back after the fact and trim it up. Is this dirty? Geez, that's probably better. What does that look like? Well, after it's all done, it's gonna look like this. I have my flush trim router bit already in my palm router. And next step is just to zip these up. Okay. So check it out. I have 4 sides. I have the bottom and I have the bottom trimmed up as well. I need to measure up for the 2 pieces that go on top so I can make my lid and then make the little dealie that slides in and out to lock it in place. It's coming together. Okay, here's where we're at. I finally caught all the boxes up to the same step. All the frames are now complete. All the boxes have been cut to size and all the bottoms have been added to the boxes. Here's why. Always helpful to make plans. I couldn't remember if I had settled on 1 inch or 1.5 inches for these top 2 pieces. I settled on 1 inch, which I marked down here in my handy dandy notebook. These will need glued on to the top there. And then I have to make my little handle and keep moving this. In the background, in the meantime, I have been thinking more about Etsy. I have a small collection of boxes. Let me just show it to you. I'm starting a small collection amongst kids' toys and recycling of boxes because I want to try to make as much profit on this as possible. So small things add up. Your boxes, your packing material, the paper you print your labels on, all of that. I'd really rather not spend money on boxes and packing material. So I want to use up what I can while still making it professional, of course. The product that I make is going to speak volumes in terms of what my shop is. Quality crafted, handmade pieces. I don't know what it's going to evolve to. It might not evolve to anything. I might not sell a thing, I don't know. But I want to start there and I want to do it the best way possible. I'm still thinking about price though. Come back to that. All my boxes are in the same spot. I feel really good about that. I need to make this right here, this little strip. I have wood left over still. I need to rip this down to 1 inch. I only need 1 per box, which is good because I'm running out of milled lumber and I'm really tired of milling up this oak. Every single piece that I'm gonna list on Etsy is gonna be different. Each one's gonna have its own little pieces of imperfections and its own little touches. That's what makes a homemade item unique. I'm following a design that I've created while I go through this process, but every single one of these handles, these pieces, I'm gonna sand individually. So I'm gonna put its own little arc. It's not gonna be like any of the other ones. And there we have it. Some really fun character to add to this box. And that's all it takes. A little bit of sanding and you got a cool little handle there. So 1 down, 19 to go. And I'm not gonna make you watch that. On to my next step, boxes to sand. Sand the outsides. The insides have been sanded. A lot of them do have the epoxy in them as well, so I really gotta hammer those and get that down with a really fine grit. After sanding, glue up is next steps, and then I can start working on my lids. Sanding is one of those necessary tasks that we have to do in woodworking. And I got a lot of sanding out of me, but we're getting really close to getting these wrapped up and ready for sale. I feel really good about that. So now it's just a matter of going through each one of these boxes and getting them sanded. This was a good opportunity to just do some imperfection fixes. My corners weren't all perfect. It's hard to get a really good 45 for me on a contractor saw, just with my setup. So the old trick that I like to do is just take a screwdriver and round over that end, just like that. It really presses those fibers together and closes up any gap that you might have. Anything else, any little epoxy pinholes that I might have missed, or maybe little gouges that happened at some point, I'm just filling in with CA glue, curing it instantly, and then sanding it. So I'm filling those divots in. One thing I have thought of here, when you take a box like the one I just did, relatively simple, didn't require a ton of sanding, there's no epoxy needed for this, and you compare that box to, say, this box right here, which I did red epoxy and I did black epoxy to fill in a lot of those imperfections. This white oak was just in rough shape. I think it looks really cool in the end. Once I get that all sanded down and polished up, I think it's gonna look really neat, especially with the black and how I finished the top. But in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I'm putting a lot more work into this wood to save it when it would have been meant for the scrap pile. It will turn out to be a very beautiful box. My dilemma right now is, what do I sell this for? Do I sell this for more than this? Do I price each piece individually? And is anybody gonna buy it at that price? So is it gonna be worth it for me to put all the work into this as it was for this? Because it isn't double the work for a box requiring epoxy as it is for just my standard red oak that didn't. But it's a considerable amount more work and time that I put into it. Something I'm thinking about in my head. I'm just gonna let this process keep playing out and see how it goes. I finished sanding all the boxes. I'm gonna take my front and back pieces and drill my holes so I can get the dowel rods in. I figure the easiest way to do that for 20 boxes is to make a jig. So I have one piece of scrap left over. I'm gonna measure and get my hole location set on this piece so that I can just get a little clampy clamp and then, you know, drill my 2 holes. 76 is the number of these guys that I have to cut for these. And while that sounds like a lot, it's really not. I'm gonna get this set up on my bandsaw because I only need 1/4 inch. I also gotta figure out the color formulas that I wanna pick for each one of these boxes, whether it's white with red or all the boxes themselves are gonna be natural. I'm gonna pick an oil finish or linseed oil or even a poly. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do just yet, but I wanna combine them if they have epoxy with maybe like a red stain, or if they're straight without any epoxy on them, maybe I ebonize them. I don't know, I'll figure that out. But that's my next step. Holy cow. I thought my fingers hurt from the sanding.
My fingers hurt.
That was something. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you really like what you're watching, maybe think about subscribing too. And that helps out a lot. Thank you. Let's get back to our progress here. Since we last checked in, the little handle piece on the front of the box is done. The joint covers with the dowel rod inserts on the top have also been completed. Up to this point, all my lids have been roughly cut. What I'm doing now is going through and just cutting them to their exact lengths. And once these are complete, then I can move on to the little strips that go on the lid. One on each side, and then my little pin that'll go in and out. My next step here is to get my 2 pieces fitted for the lid. The back piece itself will have that pin slide in and out, and that's what's gonna secure my lid in place, and when it's finished, you'll understand what that means, but I've already gone through and pre-marked where I want the front piece to sit. Right there, so I'm just working on gluing it, making sure it's even. Yeah, that fit nice. Wow, took me a bit to get here, but I got here. All 19 of these boxes they're just at the home stretch here. So my big thing with these pins, each one is sculpted just a little bit different, and they just need some micro adjustments when I get to this point. And that's exactly what I was doing over there on my belt sander. Once I put a finish on it, I'm gonna wax them too. The wax gives it a little bit more durability, but it also helps to operate nice and smooth. And the pins coming in and out, and the lid's coming on and off. This just takes a long time. Each one of these is individually handcrafted. That's really part of why I like doing what I do, because each one has its own little bit of me in it. In fact, I sliced my finger open earlier, and I got a little bit of blood on one of them. So if you get that one, woohoo, I am disease-free. It feels so good to be at this point. The box is fully assembled. I finished the lid, the accessory pieces, and the pin. Now, it's just time to start wrapping this project up and putting on the finishing touches. I don't know if we can see that spider. Yeah, there it is. That's how long this project's taken me. Someone set up shop in one of my boxes as their new home. Put you over there, little guy. So here's what I did. I went through and I labeled all my boxes when I figured out what colors I wanted to use. I'm using red because I like the way it looks, especially against that red oak. I'm using white because I like the way it looks. But I also have the red and white stain that I used on my American flag project. Links in the description below. I'm going to ebonize the wood too, so I'm going to give it a black look. And the black being my ebonizing agent. And all this is steel wool and apple cider vinegar. I love the way the ebony looks on that red oak. So that's why I chose those three colors. And I also feel that all three of them go well together. Red and white, red and black, black and white, white and black and red and white and black and white. Huh. How neat is that? The humidity level is the consistency of soup right now. And look at that. Give it a little wipey. Done, baby. I'm getting really close to wrapping this up. I want to finish up these boxes. I want to prepare them for some product photography after I get them finished. I want to get my Etsy shop back up and running. I want to build this Etsy shop like an Etsy shop that I look for when I purchase on Etsy. The big thing with that is being made in America, and I like to support small little shops. I think most shops on Etsy probably are, although I'm not positive. I like reading the backstory of the makers on that platform. I want to portray each piece that comes out of this workshop as being made individually. Each piece telling its own story, from the tree that it fell off of to the process that it was designed and built and how it's going to end up in your home if you decide to buy it. If you want to follow this journey, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. I'd also appreciate a like on the video as well. And I thank you for that. This box is near completion. Everything's been final sanded, all the finishing touches are done, and I've applied a singular coat of linseed oil. And as you can tell, it just brings out the beauty in this oak. So there you have it, a near finished product. And to put that into perspective, here is almost an identical box that hasn't been finished yet. The vibrancy in this finished box really comes to life once you add a coat of oil to it. And I'm already thinking in my head about how I want to market these boxes. They're not just going to be pencil boxes, even though that's how I started this journey, but the product that I'm putting out has changed as this entire process has changed, and I'm making this up as I go. And just like that, this project is a wrap. This project took a long time. That's just because of my creative process doing this part-time. The goal of this video is to be a 3-part series. Part 1 is what you just watched. Part 2 is going to be the building up of my Etsy shop. I'm going to work on my branding. I'm going to work on my product photography. I'm going to work on getting the actual site functional, up and running, and getting my products listed. And I want to take you through that process as well. And then part 3 is going to be how well this turned out. Am I going to sell anything? I don't know. Am I going to sell it all? How long is that going to take? My goal is to update you on how this goes. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see part 2 and part 3, maybe think about subscribing. And hey, don't forget to make today great.